prove that breast milk is stronger than liquor, I snuck into my master's wife's room right in front of my master. But my master didn't get angry. Instead he hid by the door secretly observing. My master's wife was pleading with me, eyes full of tears. But I didn't stop. In fact, my actions became even more impulsive. I knew this wasn't right. But I also knew that if I didn't do this, both my master's wife and I would die. I'm sorry, master's wife. It was my master who sent me. That moment my master was hiding outside eavesdropping. He was listening to my master's wife's heart-wrenching cries. His expression was one of intense excitement. This was because when my master was young, to satisfy his special fetish, he secretly went into the mountains and captured a fox spirit about to transform. When my master saw that the fox was still incredibly beautiful and charming, he immediately sought to take advantage of her. But after my master fought with the fox for 3 days and nights, the 9-tailed fox transformed back into its true form and bit him. From then on my master began searching for ways to regain his vigor, until he calculated that I was about to be born, so he arranged for my mother to die during childbirth, and he faked my father's death as alcohol poisoning. My grandparents couldn't handle the blow. They hung themselves on the crooked tree at the back of the mountain. And just like that I became the only orphan in the village. He pretended to be an old Taoist priest traveling down the mountain. The villagers heartlessly handed me over to the old priest. Before leaving they even gave him $50. They told him that if he didn't want me anymore, not to bring me back, just throw me into a ravine somewhere. From then on I became the old priest's disciple. I was very grateful to Zhang Duan Tui. He gave me a stable home, and taught me various Taoist arts. But Zhang Duan Tui always looked at me strangely, and he made me bite my tongue every month. He said I was born with a 9-yang body and my yang energy was incredibly strong. If I didn't release it I would certainly die. So I obediently followed his instructions and let myself bleed every month. But one day I accidentally saw Zhang Duan Tui drinking my blood. And he looked so pleased while doing it. One day Zhang Duan Tui came back with 4 beautiful women. I wondered if his body could handle it. Could it be that the master and disciple would team up? But their hands and feet were shackled with iron chains, and they were locked in a cave in the back mountain by Zhang Duan Tui. Other than delivering food to them every morning and evening, he never went inside. That day Zhang Duan Tui finally allowed me to enter the cave. He said that the yang energy in my body was increasing more and more. If I didn't release it my excess yang energy would kill me. After hearing this I felt very troubled. They had been locked in a dark cave for years. It was a miracle that they were still alive. I still didn't want to get involved with them. Zhang Duan Tui whipped me a few times, cursing at me. You're ungrateful. I'm doing this for your own good. You ungrateful little brat. My body was bruised from the lashes. With no choice I had to walk into the cave. Zhang Duan Tui stood at the entrance like a sentinel. But what surprised me was that the 4 women were not only still alive, but after so many years, they hadn't changed at all. Their faces were still youthful, their skin delicate and smooth. The entire cave was filled with a fragrance that hit me straight in the head. One of the women dragged her iron chain and walked toward me. She looked at me with no expression. Is this your first time? I blankly nodded. I'll do it. Saying this she reached out and grabbed me. I put on my clothes and walked out of the cave. The sky had already turned dark. From then on every month Zhang Duan Tui supervised me to go inside again. If I didn't go, he would beat me with a thorny vine whip until I was covered in wounds. It was then that I realized that Zhang Duan Tui was not a good person, but I didn't know that Zhang Duan Tui was actually the nemesis I had been seeking for years. Driven by hatred I worked harder to learn Taoist arts from him. In 2 or 3 years I had already learned most of his skills. I thought I could finally get my revenge. But then one day Zhang Duan Tui told me it was the last time I was to go to the cave. I was curious why it was the last time, but I still nodded and agreed. Once I entered the cave the woman named Su Ling came up to me. After this you will die. I was stunned for a moment. I didn't understand what she meant. Su Ling was silent for a moment before speaking again. Do you know why Zhang Duan Tui makes you come here every month? Yes, I have the 9 yang physique. Every month I have to release my yang energy. Otherwise I will die from excessive yang energy. That's what Zhang Duan Tui told me. I repeated it exactly as he had said. Su Ling nodded, her eyes filled with complex emotions. You are doing this to survive. But Zhang Duan Tui is different. He is keeping you alive to possess your body. When your yang energy accumulates, he will take action. I froze in place, feeling angry deep down. I hadn't expected that Zhang Duan Tui, the one who had raised me, wanted to kill me. At first I thought he just liked to torment people. But soon I regained some rationality. I warily looked at Su Ling, hesitating. How can you prove what you're saying is true? Su Ling seemed to have anticipated this moment. Has Zhang Duan Tui ever eaten duck with scallions and ginger? Because they are filled with yin energy. Plus Zhang Duan Tui is old and seriously injured with weak yang energy. If he eats it his lifespan will shorten. If you don't believe me, you can buy some and give it to him. I stared wide-eyed, unable to believe it. A chill ran down my back. I knew she was telling the truth. Because Zhang Duan Tui had really never eaten those things. He had always told me it was because of his dietary restrictions. Now I realized it was for a different reason. Su Ling saw my expression and wisely didn't say more. She swayed her body, reached out her delicate hand and slowly pulled me closer. Come on, just one last time. After this what happens will depend on fate. I stared at Su Ling standing silently for a long time. Eventually I gave in and approached her and we embraced. The other 3 women sat silently in the corner watching. They occasionally whispered to each other. I put on my clothes and walked out of the cave. By the time I was outside it was already dark. Su Ling's words echoed in my mind. If Zhang Duan Tui really wants to possess me, then I will personally kill him. When I got home I found that Zhang Duan Tui was gone. I rushed to his room and searched carefully. Finally, in a hidden compartment in the cupboard, I found a yellowed ancient book. I quickly flipped it open and read through it. It was all about the records of the 9-Yang Constitution. The last page even detailed how to use the 9-Yang Constitution to be reborn. What was written in the book was almost identical to what Zhang Duantui had me do. I stood frozen at a loss for what to do. I never expected that he really wanted to seize my body. Lu Ming, make some food, we have a guest today. Zhang Duantui's voice suddenly rang out in the yard. I quickly returned the ancient book to its place. Hey, the master has arrived. This time Zhang Duantui brought another woman back. This woman was very beautiful. She looked to be about 20 years old. It was the first time I had seen such a beautiful woman. Zhang Duantui, seeing my dazed expression, couldn't help but snort coldly. I snapped out of it and forced an awkward smile. Master, I'll go make dinner. Zhang Duantui narrowed his eyes slightly. This is your master's wife. Don't waste your energy on useless thoughts. Those women in the back mountain are enough for you. I pretended not to hear and hurried into the kitchen to get busy. Zhang Duantui dragged his master's wife into the house. Out of the corner of my eye I noticed that the master's wife, like the other women in the cave, had her hands and feet bound by iron chains. I even noticed a yellow talisman attached to the smooth neck of the master's wife. A chill ran down my spine as I felt a bad premonition. What exactly was Zhang Duantui planning to do? After finishing the meal, Zhang Duantui and his master's wife sat together at the table. I poured a cup of tea and respectfully handed it to the master's wife. Zhang Duantui seemed satisfied with my cleverness. A faint, almost imperceptible smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. The greedy, self-satisfied light in his eyes remained. It lingered on the beautiful master's wife, and occasionally shifted to glance at my body. A growing sense of fear welled up inside me. When I counted the time I realized I had only half a month left before I turned of age. Thinking about this I lost my appetite completely. I ate a few bites casually before leaving. I lay in bed tossing and turning, unable to sleep. I decided to cooperate with the women in the cave. After all, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I sneaked to the cave at the back of the mountain. Looking at the 4 women gathered in front of me, I spoke in a deep voice. I hope you can help me. The 4 women fell silent and didn't respond. After a long while Su Ling spoke first. She said they could help, but in return they wanted to be freed afterward. I hurriedly agreed. I originally thought they would have other demands, but it was just to be let out so simple. Su Ling spoke again. We are all mountain creatures. Our powers are restricted by Zhang Duantui. In this state we can't help you, unless you can break our restrictions. Mountain creatures. A strange glimmer flashed in my eyes. No wonder after all these years their appearances haven't changed at all. Su Ling pointed at herself, then at the others. I'm a fox, she's a python. That one is a spider. And the other is a centipede. My mind spun for a moment. So for the past 2 years I've been dealing with snakes, insects and monsters? But now I didn't have time to think about that. All that mattered was surviving. I nodded seriously. I had learned all of Zhang Duantui's skills. I was confident I could break one of the restrictions. Su Ling didn't hesitate and lifted her clothes to reveal her slender waist. I saw that on her white, delicate waist there was a red cinnabar tattoo, a blood-red seal. As soon as I saw the seal my mind went blank. This was a type of seal I had never studied before. Su Ling spoke. This is the fire of departure talisman. My face gradually darkened. I didn't expect that Zhang Duantui had such a hidden hand. I stayed silent for a long time before gritting my teeth and saying, "You wait for me for 2 days. I will find a way to break it." As I finished speaking, Su Ling ripped off her clothes and threw herself into my arms. Once we left the cave I immediately headed home without hesitation. I searched through the house twice, but I still couldn't find any information about the fire of departure talisman. At that moment my Shifu's wife, who had been locked in the room, spoke up. "What are you looking for?" I answered decisively, "The fire of departure talisman." There was a moment of silence in the room. "Do you want to kill Zhang Duantui?" I asked in return. "He wants to kill me, why can't I kill him?" My Shifu's wife remained silent as if I had caught her off guard. Suddenly Zhang Duantui came back. He saw me slumped on the ground, a flash of confusion in his eyes. "Kid, what are you doing?" I pretended to look uncomfortable. "Shifu, ever since we went to the cave last time, I've been feeling worse and worse." As expected, when Zhang Duantui heard that I was feeling unwell, his face showed some urgency. He quickly dropped what he was holding and hurried to check my body. His actions made me even more convinced that Zhang Duantui intended to possess me. Zhang Duantui helped me to a chair and looked for a while before coming to a conclusion. "Probably from the last night when you indulged too much. Rest for a couple of days and you'll be fine. That day Jong Duentui said he would be out for 2 days. And told me to keep an eye on my Shippu's wife and not let her escape. I suppressed my joy and quickly agreed. About half an hour after Jong Duentui left, I hurried into my Shippu's wife's room. You know where the fire of departure talisman records are? My Shippu's wife slowly sat up leaning against the head of the bed. Through a thin curtain, I could still make out the curves of her enchanting body. Why should I help you? I replied. I can let you go. Don't you fear that I might side with Jong Duentui? I decisively shook my head. You have a talisman on your back. If you were really Jong Duentui's person, he wouldn't be so cautious of you. My Shippu's wife fell silent. I won't help you. I immediately grew anxious upon hearing this. Are you really willing to stay with that 60 or 70-year-old old man? My Shippu's wife sneered. Hey, don't try to provoke me. I don't trust humans. As I expected, this Shippu's wife like the others in the cave is not human. In a fit of frustration I ripped open the curtain and looked at the Shippu's wife lying on the bed. I was immediately covered in cold sweat. Her delicate body was covered in dark purple bruises. The talisman on her neck extended into cracks that spread across her body. On her slender legs patches of mottled white fur were exposed. My Shippu's wife was angered by my sudden action. She waved her hand, and I felt a great force flip me over. I crashed into the table behind me. The curtain was pulled back up. From the bed I heard her angry voice. Get out, you damned people. I remained silent for a moment enduring the pain throughout my body and said one sentence. There are 4 women like you in the back mountain. If you don't help me, do you really think you can survive? I went back to the cave in the back mountain. Su Ling thought I had brought the solution talisman. She hurriedly came over. Can it be solved? I hung my head and slowly shook it. The old man has hidden everything related to the Li Huo talisman. Su Ling froze when she heard this. The 3 other women also gathered around. Su Ling sighed and embraced me, comforting me. It's all right, take your time. Don't we still have 7 or 8 days? I felt the softness from her chest and asked. Is there any other way to lift the Li Huo talisman? Su Ling fell silent for a moment and then slowly spoke. We could forcibly remove this talisman, but the consequence would be that our cultivation would be greatly reduced. More seriously, it could lead to death and the complete loss of our cultivation. I fell silent. Forcibly removing it would damage their cultivation. Even if it is removed, it wouldn't have a decisive effect. It still wouldn't change anything. I directed all my anger towards Jong Duentui at them. I focused all my rage on them. This time I fell asleep directly in the cave. In the middle of the night I vaguely heard the 4 women whispering again. Are we going to eat him? No rush. Let him release us first, then we'll eat. But I can't wait any longer. We can't eat him yet. Jong Duentui will kill us. I'm really so hungry. If I stay hungry any longer I don't even need this symbol. I'll die anyway. Let's hold on for 2 more days. If he really can't find a way to save us we can eat then. I trembled all over as I listened. I could only tightly close my eyes and pretend to sleep, not daring to move. The next morning as the sun just appeared I quickly ran back home. As soon as I entered I saw Jong Duentui's dark face. Where did you go? I was silent for a moment and said I went to the back mountain. Jong Duentui's eyes narrowed slightly. Kid, be careful not to let your desires cloud your judgment. Be careful with ghostly illusions, they are not to be trifled with. I felt a sharp pang in my heart. I quickly forced a smile towards my master. Master, I just couldn't help but feel a bit anxious. Jong Duentui snorted twice, lowered his head and continued smoking his big dry cigarette. I hurried back to my room. I sat on the bed huddled in the corner. My mind was in a complete mess. These 4 women want to kill me. Jong Duentui also wants to kill me. So it seems like everyone wants me dead. I couldn't help but shake my head, barely able to believe all of this. No, wait. I still have Shi Niang. Shi Niang has a grudge with Jong Duentui. And she doesn't know those 4 women. This is my only lifeline. The next morning, I went to Jong Duentui and asked for a few $100s. I told him my birthday was coming up. I wanted to go to the village down the mountain to buy some delicious food and celebrate properly. Jong Duentui hesitated for a while before handing me the money. Looking at his expression my heart finally sank. Jong Duentui had indeed started to suspect me. I took the money and hurried to the village's pesticide shop. Aunt Wong, do you have any medicine that can calm a cow down? Aunt Wong gave me a strange look. Wasn't the pack Jong Duentui bought yesterday enough? I was a bit confused, nervously responding. I lost it on the way back. He told me to come buy it again. Aunt Wong rummaged through the drawer and handed me a packet of powder. This stuff is strong. A little about the size of a pinky is enough. If you use too much it'll kill the cow. I nodded, took the medicine, paid and left. Why did Jong Duentui buy medicine? There are no livestock at home. It's very likely that his thoughts align with mine. I felt uneasy as I randomly bought some alcohol and food at the store. Carrying them I headed home. I crouched in the woods and opened the wine I bought for Jong Duentui. I poured in the animal medicine directly. I didn't even care about the amount. I poured it all in. I hope it kills Jong Duentui directly. Just as I reached the door, I saw that Jong Duentui had bloodstains on his clothes. I forced a smile and greeted him. Master, I bought you some good cigarettes and alcohol. Jong Duentui glanced at me and mumbled. Buying such expensive cigarettes, is it worth it? I smiled foolishly. Master, you raised me. It's only right for me to buy you good cigarettes and alcohol. It's only natural for me to buy you good cigarettes and alcohol. Just as I was about to enter the kitchen to cook, Jong Duanqiu stopped me. He told me to take yesterday's leftover food and deliver it to the 4 women in the cave. He would cook today. I forced myself to calm my racing heart and walked up to the back mountain with the lunchbox. Is Jong Duanqiu really planning to poison me today? When I entered the cave, I noticed that Su Ling and the others had more bloodstains on their clothes. Su Ling, dragging a chain, staggered towards me. Hurry up, please. It seemed like Jong Duanqiu had already made his plans. I sneered inwardly. If you want to harm me, you're no saints either. After delivering the food, I headed back home. As soon as I entered, I saw that Jong Duanqiu and my master's wife had already prepared the meal waiting for me. I smiled and teased Jong Duanqiu. After all these years, I've never seen you cook. I didn't expect it to look so good. Jong Duanqiu gave me a look, then pointed to my master's wife. How could I know how to cook anything? Except for the beans on the table. Everything else was made by your master's wife. I fell silent and my gaze toward my master's wife became more wary. From what I've observed about her recently, she would definitely take advantage of this chance to poison me. And as for the beans, Jong Duanqiu made no need to think twice. I'm sure they're poisoned too. My master took out the wine and poured a glass, handing it to me. Luke Min, it's your birthday today, have a drink. Master, I can't drink. I'll just throw up if I drink. I stayed silent for a while before coming up with this excuse. Jong Duanqiu looked at the wine on the table. A cold gleam flashed in his eyes. You're already this old, and you still can't drink? Are you not afraid of embarrassing yourself? I forced myself to suppress the fear in my heart. The glass of wine on the table looked as dangerous as poison to me. At this moment, my master's wife spoke up. Your master is right. Just have a little. It's not poison. Poison? The word made my heart skip a beat. Could it be that my master's wife and master are in cahoots? I forced a happy expression and picked up the glass. Master, I don't drink well. Please don't mind me. Just as I was about to take a small sip out of courtesy, a loud crash suddenly came from the back mountain. Jong Duanqiu's face darkened noticeably. He snorted coldly. You two stay here, I'm going out for a bit. After saying that, he quickly ran toward the back mountain. I breathed a long sigh of relief and slumped down in my chair. That was close. I almost drank that poisoned wine. At that moment, my master's wife glanced at me and snorted. With this kind of courage, you still dare to poison Jong Duanqiu? I looked up and shot her a resentful glance before replying sarcastically. At least I'm better than you. I know how to resist and you only know how to wait. Under the dim light, my master's wife's face appeared a little pale. I stared at her intently. She was wearing a plain coarse cloth dress, which didn't match her fair skin at all. She seemed uncomfortable under my gaze. Do you want to violate ethics, master's wife? The words were too direct. I felt my face turn red and my head spin. I don't know why, but I replied. I actually do want to. We're about to die anyway. The atmosphere froze. Finally, I couldn't help but speak again. How about we cooperate and escape together? My master's wife didn't say a word. She stared expressionlessly at the food on the table, which was gradually cooling. I furrowed my brows and looked at her again, trying to persuade her. We're tied together now. If I die, do you think you'll survive? Do you really want to spend your whole life with this old man? Do you really want to stay with him forever? The master's wife gave me a once-over. I can help you, if you need to give me a bowl of your blood. I was stunned, unable to understand why she wanted my blood. The master's wife spoke again. Your blood is special, it can help me heal my injuries. Alright, I'll agree to it. I immediately agreed. Master's wife nodded. In a couple of days, when Jong Duanqiu lowers his guard, you and I will have a chance. We'll give him the poisoned wine. I'll take care of the rest. I felt a little uncomfortable inside. I didn't expect that the master's wife had already noticed that I had poisoned the wine. Jong Duanqiu must have noticed it too. In the next 2 days, I took advantage of Jong Duanqiu going down the mountain to head for the back mountain cave. The 4 women were all injured. Before I could comfort them, Ning Yan immediately rushed to the door, kneeling on the ground, her eyes full of pleading. Please hurry and get us out of here. Xiao Si was beaten so badly last night, she's almost dead. If we stay here any longer, we'll all die. I vaguely saw a woman lying deep in the cave. Her breath was faint, on the verge of death. Seeing that I didn't respond, Ning Yan immediately lifted her clothes. Please hurry up. As long as you can get us out of here, I'll do anything you want. I squatted down and patted her shoulder. Don't worry, we'll get out soon. Ning Yan nodded heavily and tried to pull me into the cave. I immediately refused and turned to leave. Entering the cave is impossible now. I'm afraid they might take the chance to kill me. But when I got home, I heard the sound of master's wife crying in the room. Her cries kept echoing non-stop. I hesitated at the door for a long time before pushing it open and walking in. Master's wife saw me enter without a word and looked a bit angry and embarrassed. What are you doing here? I took scissors out of my pocket and made a small cut on my palm. Then I immediately shoved my hand into her mouth. Drink this first, it will help you recover your injuries. Otherwise, I'm afraid you might drag me down later. Master's wife was silent for a moment before she started sucking again. After a moment, she stopped. I endured the dizziness in my head. Master's wife, can you take a bit more? Please try to recover faster. Master's wife gave me a complicated look. She picked up a cloth from the side and wrapped my hand. It's much better now, no need. I glanced over her body. It was clear that her injuries had improved a lot. After helping Master's wife, I quickly left the room. Just then Jean Duan Tui returned. He was dragging a sheep. Behind him he was carrying a bamboo cage. Through the small gaps, I could vaguely see snakes inside. I smiled and quickly walked toward Jean Duan Tui. Master, why did you buy so many things? Jean Duan Tui chuckled and stroked his beard. Your 18th birthday is coming up soon. I prepared some delicious food in advance. We'll have a good meal together then. I volunteered to help Jean Duan Tui carry the things inside. But out of the corner of my eye I noticed the snakes in the cage. Each snake had a different color. I suddenly remembered that in the secret manual I had stolen, there was a page that recorded how to use the 9 yang physique to be reborn. The 3 snake rite. Snakes belong to yin and are highly venomous. They can suppress the yang energy in my 9 yang physique. Then through the ritual they can devour my 9 yang physique and give me rebirth. I forced myself to endure the fear in my heart, and carried everything inside. I then made an excuse and went back to my room to rest. It wasn't until lunchtime that afternoon that I heard Jean Duan Tui's voice outside. Lu Ming, I'm going to the back mountain. I hid in my room listening as his footsteps grew distant. I rushed back into Master's wife room and said nervously, Master's wife Jean Duan Tui is about to make his move. I told her everything about the ritual. Master's wife lay on the bed thinking for a while. Put 2 drops of your blood in their drink. As soon as I heard this I immediately understood what Master's wife meant. I left the room. I turned my gaze toward the venomous snakes inside the bamboo cage. The 3 venomous snakes each had a different color, but each of them shared the same unpleasant stench. I used a pair of tongs to grab the snakes from the bamboo cage. Carefully I opened their mouths. Then I quickly bit my finger and dropped 2 drops of blood inside. Instantly the snakes began to struggle violently, opening their mouths to bite me. After a while they went limp and lifeless. I looked at the venomous snakes in my hands. A smile couldn't help but form on my lips. I hurriedly gave the other 2 snakes their share of blood. This time Jean Duan Tui also brought back a big rooster. The rooster's feathers were bright and vibrant, full of energy. When the rooster saw me approaching, it immediately started struggling violently, trying to escape. I quickly held it down, opened its beak and stuffed some incense ash inside. Immediately the rooster calmed down and squatted on the ground motionless. As evening approached, Jean Duan Tui returned. Jean Duan Tui said with a cheerful face, Lu Ming, what do you want for your birthday? Master will fulfill your wish. My mind quickly turned and I casually replied, as long as you're here that's enough. After I turn 18 I'll go work and study. Then I'll take care of you in your old age. Jean Duan Tui was very happy and kept talking to Master's wife. Master's wife kindly agreed with him. Jean Duan Tui looked at me with a resentful gaze. After a full meal I thought we were finally going to sleep. But unexpectedly Jean Duan Tui suddenly noticed the snake cage in the corner. He shoved me aside and hurried over to the bamboo cage.